Good morning, class. Before we begin with today's discussion, I want to know if my video and audio are comprehensible, clear on your end.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And just for a heads up, this session is being recorded, so for the convenience of everybody in the class, I encourage you to turn off the microphone unless you are called to avoid unnecessary noise that might cause interruption during the lesson. Also, if your microphones are malfunctioning, I encourage you to make use of the MS Teams chat box for your answers and other inquiries. Is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for answering, Mr. Castro. Now, before we begin with the discussion, let us have a brief recap of what we have discussed last meeting. Last time we have discussed the four major types of adverbs. What is an adverb? An adverb, like what we have discussed last time, is a part of speech that provides greater description to a verb, adjective, or another adverb. Some adverbs can also modify a phrase, a clause, or a whole sentence. Afterwards, we have discussed the five basic types of adverbs. Can somebody from the class enumerate these five? Yes, Miss Cruz.
Yes, ma'am. The three major types of adverbs are adverbs of time, adverbs of place, adverbs of manner, adverbs of frequency, and adverbs of degree.
Very good, Miss Cruz. Now that you have an in-depth understanding of what an adverb is and the five basic types of an adverb, we can move on to our next lesson. For today's lesson, we are going to talk about the rules that surround these two particular types of a part of speech called adjectives. We are going to talk about the gradable and non-gradable adjectives. Now, what are adjectives? Perhaps you are already familiar with what an adjective is, but this is just a quick review to refresh what you might already know about adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe or modify a noun or a pronoun. They often serve as modifiers, providing additional information about another word or word group, such as noun or noun phrase. Adjectives are usually placed before the noun that they describe. Consider these examples on the slide presentation. A book. For example, I say, I have a book. Now, by using adjectives, I can provide extra information or extra explanation about this noun, which is a book. This word I'm going to use before the noun can be an adjective. I can say, I have a history book. History, in this case, serves as an adjective. It's giving quality to the book that I have. Or I can also say, it's an entertaining book. Entertaining here is an adjective. It is giving quality, or it is qualifying the book. It is describing the book. Another example is a song. To give quality to the noun song, I can say a classic or a modern song. So this is an adjective. It is a word that describes places, people, things, thoughts. They give quality to the noun that it precedes. Now that you have an idea about what an adjective is, let us have a short activity. I'm going to show you noun words with pictures, and you're going to fill in each blank with the first adjective word that you can think of in relation to that particular picture. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the first one is a building. What is the first adjective or qualifying word that comes to mind? Yes, Mr. Castro.
The first qualifying word I thought of was the word tall.
Good, Mr. Castro. These buildings are indeed tall. What about the second picture? Yes, Miss Cruz. What is the first qualifying word that you thought of seeing this picture of a dining table?
The first adjective that I could think of is the word messy.
Very good. This table is messy because you can see that the dining utensils are disorganized, right? What about the third one, Mr. Castro?
The adjective that I can think of for this picture is revolutionary.
Very good, Mr. Castro. Andres Bonifacio is one of the revolutionary heroes of Philippine history as he fought for our national freedom. Now that we know what an adjective is, we can move on to our lesson. There are many different types of adjectives, but in this lesson, we are going to focus on gradable and non-gradable adjectives. The first one is the gradable adjectives. What are gradable adjectives? In general class, most adjectives in English or most adjectives that you know are gradable adjectives. Gradable adjectives are adjectives that can be measured. It can have different levels of a certain quality. It can be modified by adverbs to make the adjective's original meaning more or less powerful. We can use gradable adjective with modifiers or adverbs of degree such as little, a bit, pretty, very, slightly, quite, really, extremely, fairly, etc. And those modifiers tell us how weak or strong the adjectives are. Consider these following sentences. This book is very good. This book is fairly good. This book is not very good. The adjective here is the word good. Now, in order to know if the word good is a gradable adjective, you can ask yourself, can a book be more or less good? The answer is yes, it is a gradable adjective. As you can see, the modifiers or the verbs I use in these sentences, such as very, fairly, not very, have different levels of intensity. Another example, take a look at these sentences. This soup is a little hot. This soup is very hot. This soup is extremely hot. So the adjective hot can be measured, intensified, or graded because if I tell you that this soup is a little hot, you will understand one thing. But if I tell you, wow, this soup is extremely hot, you will understand a completely different thing. You can also use gradable adjectives when you're making comparative or superlative sentences. For example, my dress is more beautiful than your dress. What kind of sentence do you think this is? Yes, Miss Cruz.
The sentence is a comparative sentence
How do you say so?
because more here is giving more intensity to the adjective beautiful. It is a comparative sentence, meaning you are making comparison between two things, my dress and your dress.
Very good, Miss Cruz. This sentence is in comparative form. What about the second one? Yes, Mr. Castro. Sao
This
Paulo.
sentence,
Sao Paulo is the most populous city in Brazil. When you say populous, what you mean is having a large population or densely populated. You can proceed, Mr. Castro. What kind of sentence do you think this is?
sentence is the superlative form, ma'am. Shows the greatest degree of comparison. The modifier most gives degree, grade, or strength to the adjective populous.
Excellent, Mr. Castro. So that is what we mean by gradable adjectives. These are words, these are qualifying words that can be measured or can be graded, hence the name. Here are some other examples of non-gradable adjectives. The second type of adjectives that we're going to tackle is the non-gradable adjectives. Non-gradable adjective, in contrast with gradable adjectives, um, are words that describe absolute, take note of that, qualities that cannot usually be graded or cannot be modified. For example, her arguments were fantastic. What is the non-gradable adjective here and what is the noun it tries to modify? Yes, Miss Cruz.
The non-gradable adjective here is the word fantastic, and the noun it tries to modify is the noun arguments.
Very good. The adjective used here is fantastic. Now, fantastic cannot be modified by grading adverbs. You cannot say very fantastic, a little fantastic, or extremely fantastic because fantastic is already the intense version of the word very good. In ungradable adjectives, you cannot have weaker or stronger variations because these words are already intense. Now, non-gradable adjectives tend to fall into three categories, namely extreme, absolute, and classifying. The first one is extreme non-gradable adjectives. Extreme adjectives are stronger versions of gradable adjectives. They already contain the idea of very in their definition. For example, her idea was awful. In this sentence, you cannot use intensifiers such as extremely or very because the idea of extremely is the meaning of awful already. If we want to make extreme adjectives stronger, we can use absolutely or really in place of extremely and very. It can be her idea was absolutely awful or her idea was really awful. The second one is absolute non-gradable adjectives. Absolute adjectives, on the other hand, cannot be graded because they describe fixed qualities or states. Absolute adjectives have a meaning that is generally not capable of being intensified or compared. For example, our cat looks dead. The absolute adjective here is the word dead. It is an absolute adjective because dead cannot be graded. You cannot say our cat is a bit dead or very dead, or you cannot say the cat is deader or most deader than the other cat. It does not make sense. The cat is either dead or alive. There is no in between. With absolute adjectives, you cannot imagine having, or you can imagine having a switch. It's just either on or off. It describes qualities that are completely present or completely absent. Another example is her speaking voice is unique. The absolute adjective here is unique. Something cannot be less unique or more unique. It's just unique or not unique. I hope you get the idea. Let's move on to the third type of non-gradable adjectives, the classifying adjectives. Classifying adjectives are used to say that something is of specific type or class. These adjectives are used to divide people or things into particular groups or classes. It does not have comparative or superlative forms. For example, the audience was American. The audience, which is the noun and the subject of the sentence, is being classified as American. In this type of adjective, nouns are being categorized. Another example, we are going to fill a wooden box. Box is categorized or specified as wooden because a box can be a steel or a plastic. Another one, she walked through the olive trees. What kind of tree she walked through? An olive tree. A tree can have a lot of variations, an apple tree, a mango tree, pine tree, but she walked specifically through the olive trees. So classifying adjectives are non-gradable because they express permanent or absolute characteristics and they cannot be graded. So those are the gradable and non-gradable adjectives. Gradable adjectives are words that can be measured, while non-gradable adjectives are words that cannot usually be measured. Do you have any questions about gradable and non-gradable adjectives? If there is none, let us have a short activity. I have here a short excerpt from a descriptive text retrieved from the internet. I am going to read it, and what you're going to do is you're going to list at least 2 to 3 adjectives that you hear or read from the text, and you're going to label them whether gradable or non-gradable adjectives. They can also be under 3 subsets of non-gradable adjectives, namely extreme, absolute, or classifying adjectives. Let me read it for you. The way I see things, life is different at the beach. Time doesn't move hour to hour, but moment to moment. We live by the weeping currents, play by the ever-changing tides, and follow the direction of the yellow globe in the sky. In my experience, trip to the beach never fail to make my heart giddy and rid my life of any obstacles, at least temporarily. For me, looking out at the never-ending ocean is like looking through a special pair of glasses. I see the world with a different point of view. Everything seems peaceful and serene, nothing is too troubled, and no one too anxious. A trip to the beach will completely overwhelm your senses. What do I get most anxious about when I go to the beach? Sprinting, tearing, racing through the ocean, regarding nothing but the crystal blue, balmy water and feeling pure contentment. But in my rush to get to the water, my care for the sights around the seem to slip in my mind. I glance around, and at first sight, one might see a few teenagers on summer break in their um, Nemo collared swimsuit and shameless black sunglasses, gambling around and bubbling with joy. You might see the few mothers daring enough to bring their giggling toddlers in bright bubblegum pink that match the shade of their sweet, sunburnt little cheeks. Look around a little bit more, open your eyes a little wider, skim the surface of the water topped with chalky white foam and teeming with meager little creatures of the sea whose shells spiral around like a staircase in the most grand of castles for the most grand of princesses. Watch the thick waterlogged sandcastles crush against the cozy, pristine sand beneath your feet. Scan the sky and take a minute to notice the alabaster white seagulls that cackle above your head and cheat French fries out of the hands of awestruck tourists. Stare out the mysterious crashing waves and take note of the ash-colored pelicans flinging themselves into the water with a splash and reappearing with an outstretched beak full of terrified fishes. So that is the expert. I will give you 5 to 10 minutes to read and analyze the text. Okay, time's up. Who wants to volunteer? Could you give 2 to 3 adjectives you have heard from the text and label them as gradable or non-gradable? Yes, Mr. Castro.
The three adjectives I listed are serene, pure, and dill. The first one is serene. Serene is an absolute adjective because you cannot use extreme intensifiers. Serene is already the intense version of very calm. The second one, the word pure, is a gradable adjective because you can measure it. The third word, which is ash colored, is a classifying adjective because it is specified, characteristic for the noun pelicans.
Very good, Mr. Castro. Very good, Mr. Castro. Your answers are all correct. Other answers. There are many adjectives in this excerpt. How about Miss Cruz?
Yes, ma'am. The adjectives I listed are terrified, different, and white foam. Terrified is an extreme adjective because it is already the intense version of very scared. Different is a gradable adjective, and white foam is a classifying adjective because it places particular quality or category to the noun foam.
Good job, Miss Cruz. Good job, class. All of your answers are correct. I am glad that you now have an in-depth understanding of the gradable and ungradable adjectives. Now, for your assignment letter A, you are going to answer a 5-item multiple choice quiz on gradable and non-gradable adjective. You are going to choose the correct answer among the other choices that consist of adverbial intensifiers and write your answers on the blank. For assignment letter B, you are going to write a short descriptive essay on your favorite tourist destination. Your short essay should have 5 gradable and 5 non-gradable adjectives. Your essay should not exceed more than 200 words. Are there any questions or clarifications? Okay, if there are none, that would be all for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next meeting. Okay na po.